Hello my crafty friends, welcome to part 2 of the video when I'm going to show you an alternative way that you can create the Cute Scientist reveal wheel card without actually owning the stamps. What you'll need to do is download a piece of software called Inkscape, and it's a free piece of software and you can get it for Microsoft Windows desktops and Mac use as well. Although Mac users, if you download it, you will also need to download the application Xquartz in order for it to run. It's much simpler if you're downloading and running it on Windows. So once you've actually downloaded it and you open Inkscape, it looks something like this. Now I've already started making some files and I'm going to show you how to do this. Now you've got to be very careful about selecting your image that they're not actually copyrighted in any way. So what I did is I looked on some colouring pages and so on, and I found something called My Cute Graphics. So if we go back, what I found is it says it's here, royalty free clip art. So that means, in my opinion, that means that it's free for us to use as there's no royalty charges and it's free. Now, you can either download these pictures either coloured in, which you could just then resize and use on your card, cut them out right from being coloured. But if you're like me and you like to do your own designing and your own colours, I like to start with black and white and take it from there. Then I can colour in whatever colour that I choose. But that's entirely up to you. But if you wanted to just simply download a girl and a boy scientist and then go on to create the scene, that would be okay. So what I've actually done is I've already imported everything except the boy, and I've converted it to a path, and I'll explain the benefit of doing that once I've shown you how to import. So all you would do is right click, save image as, and give it a name. We go on file and import, and we want to get have we got the boy or the girl? We've got the girl, so we want the boy scientist, and we're going to say OK. So that will bring in the image as an image. Now what I'm going to do now is show you how to trace that so it makes it a path rather than. So at the minute, if I double click and click on the node editing tool, there's no nodes to edit because it's not a path, it's an image. So we'll go on this icon up here, file, edit, view, layer, object, path. This is just really like a complicated version of Canvas Workspace, but if you just follow the steps step by step and you don't worry about anything else or all the lots of different icons and things like that, you can have a play. You can't do anything wrong, but if you want to have a play, that's fine. But if you just want to do what I want to do, which is trace the bitmap, all you need to do is click path, trace the bitmap, and then leaving all of the options at their default setting, click update and it will show you it there, preview, and then say OK. That has now traced that black and white image for us. So if we now delete that, so that's now what we call a path. So it has nodes which we're used to seeing, and you can see them, all the nodes that are there, and all these have been already converted to a path. So you might be thinking, well, why bother when we've already got the image because of colour? Well, the simple reason is, and I'm just going to zoom in on my page a little bit here. So the simple reason for making things into a path is clearly at the moment, if I go on this icon here, which means lock the aspect, it's like the aspect ratio in Brothers Canvas Workspace. If you click that, it means I can resize him proportionally. But if I make him huge, it doesn't matter how big I make him, he's never ever going to pixelate because he's not an image anymore, he's a path. So that's one reason why I prefer to have them as paths. It means I can shrink them right down to small little tiny images and it's going to draw perfectly or print perfectly, or I can undo that and have him back to normal size and we'll zoom back out again. So now we've got all of our images, and I'm just going to minus again so we can see what we're doing. So we know that we've got, because at the minute you can see we've got a microscope that's as big as him, and also equipment. Oh, incidentally, this one I found on a different page, and it's called Best Colouring Pages for Kids. And if you scroll down through the images, you'll find lots of sciencey images. And then I came across eventually this one, which I thought was great because it has all the apparatus, a notebook and a molecule. So all I did again was just save the image as and brought it into the Inkscape software, the same as everything else. Now, what I can also do, which is a good, at the minute that's just one image and the microscope is just one image, and that came from the same site as the little boy. So I've now got my little girl and I've got my microscope, and they're all paths. At the minute, these can all be resized proportionally, but I might not want them all, and I might want to do them individually, and so that I can see what they're going to look like. Now, what you can do is go on path, break apart, and then you just get this outline. And what you would do then is select each of them by dragging a box around it individually and saying path combine, and that will bring it on. Now you've got it as a separate image. So again, you would drag it round and you would say path combine. So again, all I'm doing now is just making these into individual images, like how my boy, girl and microscope are individual images, because this was a cluster of images, if you will. So just right click, path, and combine. So that's all I'm doing, is just splitting them down into their individual sets. So path, combine, and again, this could be a little bit tricky, this one, because it's in the middle. Oh, I've just moved something. So I'm just going to try to get this one without getting anything else. And I might have managed it. Path, combine. Yeah, I think I did. So we're okay with that. Now I can get the notebook. Path, combine. And again, selecting the molecule. Path, combine. So now all my images are individual, that I can resize individually. So if I want that one bigger, but that one smaller, I can now do that. And I'm not going to get any pixelation or anything nasty happening. So all I'm going to do now is just move everything off to the side so that I can look at if I can select this. That's what I'm going to do anyway. I'm going to move everything off the workspace. So off the mat, if you will. It's like the page in this case. And I'm going to just... I'm just going to scroll down so I can see my page. And I'm just going to hit this icon here so that I can see what's on my page. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring myself on a rectangle. And it's brought it in bright blue, and that's not what I want. So I'm just going to go on this down here, and we're going to go to no fill. Okay, but we still can see the stroke, which is just a line. So it's like we've just drawn a rectangle in canvas. Now, if I go on my selection tool, which is this one here, and select the rectangle that we've just drawn, I want to put... At the minute, it's in pixels, the size, and I want it to be in inches because that makes more sense to me. And we want this to be, we can unlock the aspect ratio here because we want to make it 4.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches high. And I'm guessing you're getting the idea. Reason why we're doing this is because we're going to be thinking about what sort of room we've got for our scene and how big our images need to be. So we're obviously, if I stick to that, she's going to be as big as the whole panel. So I need to shrink her down. So I'm going to shrink up. I've got to run. So I need back on to maintain the aspect ratio, as she won't shrink. So just by locking it here, hitting this padlock, we can resize her and make her smaller. Now I had my images on the page like so, and then I'm going to get my young man, and we're going to resize him down, not that small, so that he's relative to her, so he looks about the same size. So she's 2.7 and he's 2.9, so we could take him down a little bit. So they're roughly now the same height. Now, bearing in mind, on the desk behind my people, if you will, I made myself a desk, and I will show you how to do that when I make the card. So clearly, if these are going to go on a desk, they need to be shrunk way down. So I'm just going to zoom in so we can see what we're doing. Oh, not that much. So we're just going to zoom in a little bit. So I'm just going to click on, and that's enough. And we'll go back onto the selection tool. All I'm doing here is getting the relative sizes of what I need them to print at. Otherwise, it's going to look like wrong, really. They're going to be out of proportion to the rest of the images, because obviously these flasks are huge. So what I'm going to do is just drag them on, get them, imagining that there's a desk here behind them, behind the images. And I might actually just make these just a tiny bit smaller, because I think, so he's now 2 point, and we'll make that one 2.3-ish as well. So we've got the desk behind them, and then I had my chemicals lined up. So again, we need to now select this one that we've just brought on, and we're going to shrink that one down and position it up with the other one so I can overlap them a little bit. We're going to send that one to the back. So we go in layer, move to the bottom, and then we could have maybe this one next to it, and again just shrink it down so it's proportion to the other ones. You can line up and make a nice little cluster of them, and then, and remember, because they're going to be cut out of paper, you're not going to be able to see them, so you will be able to stack them up like this. And you might want another one of those, in which case just edit undo that, because I've just done it what I normally do on the other machine, on the other software. So I'm going to copy and paste, so it edit undo. What have I done here now? So I need to get off that whatever it is I've got hold of there. So we're going to edit, copy, edit, paste. So that gives us another one of those flasks, and you could make that one a little bit smaller if you wanted to, and just play around with it until you're happy that you've got enough image that you think is going to fit there. Now I had a, just let me zoom out so I can find it, I had the microscope sitting at the other side of the bench. So this is a slightly different microscope, but the idea is the same. And I will position that on the bench behind them, and so on. And then I think I'm going to resize the molecule. I just have that on the wall as like some decoration, if you will. And I'm just going to resize that down. So all I'm doing is keeping the aspect ratio locked, and I can fit that somewhere over here, maybe just a little bit smaller, like so. And I can have my atom diagram showing the electrons whizzing around, and I could have that somewhere else here. Maybe make two of those, and if I've done it again, excuse me, I keep wanting to do my duplicate in the same way that I do it in Canvas, and it's not. Edit and then paste. So then I've got two of those if I wish, and all I'm going to do then is spread the images out so that you can see what I've got. Now I think that'll be plenty for the front of the card. Now there's nothing saying you can't do more now that we've got these sizes right. So I'm just going to position them now so that when they cut out, I can get rid of that rectangle because I don't need that. They'll let me. There we go. What have we got over here? We've got the notebook and another conical flask. Actually, we haven't got a conical flask over there, so we'll move the conical flask into position, and we'll have that one as well, so that you've got a selection of flasks and such that you can use. So I'm just going to fit to mat. I can get rid of the notebook unless you wanted to specifically have that. You might have it on the floor in the foreground or something, just as an embellishment. So I suppose if you wanted, you can leave it on. So I'm just going to resize it so it's in proportion to everything else. So there's the notebook. And then all I'm going to do is line up the images so that there's enough space around them to leave a white border. It's my preference to leave a white border. It might be your preference to cut them right up to the edge with the scan and cut. It's entirely your choice. So I'm just positioning them so that, because I want to leave a white border, I can. So I'll put the girl and the boy, move the flask, the round bottom flask, and then we'll move the notebook. So now we've got our images. So if we zoom in, oh, we've gone massive again. So we're going to zoom back out. So we'll fit to map, and now we can see that. So that's how we're going to print off. So then all you would do then is file and save your work, if you will, and then file, and you will go to print. I'm going to click my LaserJet. Now, if you've got an inkjet printer, the only thing I would say is if you're going to use Copics to colour on an inkjet printed piece of paper, you can do it, but just make sure you heat set the images or give them 24 hours to dry before you start, because otherwise the black ink might smudge. I would always advocate doing a heat set, but that's entirely your choice. Then I would use your normal Copic colouring card or whatever in your printer and print it, and I'll show you in the next video when I build the card together what to do next with your scan and cut, so that you can get all your pieces ready for action. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do not be scared of Inkscape. If you just follow the steps, go back to where I started, where you're bringing in the image, and then go on to path, and you're going to go on to trace the bitmap, and just follow everything that it says. You'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.